This is a high-grade special on gender equality in mining. There are as many CEOs called Andrew as there are women in the top 100 mining companies. So, how do we get more women into the extractive C-suite? Gillian Davidson holds a number of board positions in mining companies and knows the power game of the industry. Welcome to Highgrade, Gillian.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
You know the extractives well. You worked for mining companies, the World Economic Forum. You sit on several boards, including chairing the International Women in Mining. Why is an organization that focuses exclusively on women needed?
Well, I think it's a really timely question because in some regards, it's never been better to be a woman in mining. We've never had so much attention and focus in terms of discussion and debate about the role of women, improving representation. And we're actually seeing that transition into action. Some of the major companies such as BHP setting targets for 50-50. But at the same time, there's huge issues. And one is that I think there's a disconnect. So World Economic Forum releases a gender report every year, and it shows that it will take us globally 108 years to reach gender parity. It will take over 200 years to reach economic parity for women. So way outside of our lifetimes to achieve that equity. But if you ask people, how long will it take us to reach gender parity? People answer on average 5 to 10 years. So there's a huge disconnect between actually what the reality is and what people think is required to be done. The second thing is in our sector, it's a chronic issue. We haven't actually really increased the numbers since the early 2000s. We're still sitting around 16, 17, 18%, depending on the data you look at. That's even lower for women in senior positions. The Responsible Mining Foundation looked at top companies and showed that very few to none were really looking at gender in their strategy and in their work going forward. So we really have this reality and a disconnect, and it's not going to solve itself.
Gender equality in mining, what is that?
Well, I think there's representation, but then there's also participation. So really, we focus a lot on getting the numbers in there, but what we really need to be also looking at is how well are we being inclusive and participatory? So are women really making it to the management team, the executive team, to the board? Are they staying in the sector?
So you're talking about inclusive participation. I mean, you had a long career in the mining industry. Did you feel that you were not included as a woman?
In certain situations, yes. And I actually would say that as I've advanced in my career, I've found it more difficult because you become more alone. There's fewer and fewer women, as I said, as we go into those management positions, into executive, into the board. So you're suddenly finding yourself as the only woman at the table. So I think, that can make you feel very on the outside. The good news is that at the attraction level, more and more women are coming into the industry. And in some professions like geology, it's actually 50-50. We actually have equal men and women. But what we don't have are women staying in the sector.
I want to focus in particular on women at the top, joining the C-suite. There are surveys showing that few women go all the way. They don't reach the higher ranking in mining companies. There are some numbers now that are showing that in executive offices, not even 10% were women in mining companies. But I'd like to explore the root cause of this. Why are there so few women that reaches these management positions?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question because, as we were saying, at the entry level, we're seeing an improvement. We're seeing a growth of women being attracted to the mining sector. So the recruitment process is being enhanced and is improving. But what we're not seeing is career progression and the opportunity for women to really access promotion, to really reach the more senior positions, and often leaving the sector. Again, because there are other challenges such as work-life balance. In the mining sector, we have a lot of challenges around location, shift work, etc., which puts pressure on especially women who still maintain most of the caring responsibility roles in a family.
But maybe women don't want to go into management positions. Maybe they want to have that life-work balance and not put in the effort that requires for a management position.
And I think every individual will be different. I think a lot of men probably feel the same way. And a lot of these conversations aren't about women and men. It's about the system that is set up. But I think what we need to make sure is that we are accessing the best talent pool that we can as an industry. We're an industry that is going through very difficult times. We're transitioning out of recovery. There's a lot of talk about what will be the mining sector of the future, and it's going to need talent. And so are we actually accessing the best talent base, and are we allowing all those who wish to progress the opportunities to have those? The International Women in Mining has a mentoring program. And amongst the women that are being mentored, there are three key elements that everybody talks about looking for support in their mentoring. One is about career development. How do I actually develop in my career, and how do I progress? The second is work-life balance, and how do I achieve that as I advance my career? And the third is confidence. How do I build my confidence to actually pursue these opportunities, to put my hand up, and to create the work-life balance that I need?
I mentioned in the beginning that you today sit on a number of boards, and looking at the mining industry, it's one of the industries with the fewest number of women on boards. But would you say that the female perspective adds unique value to boards?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question that's being debated, I think, a lot right now across all sectors, as we've seen the real push for increased participation of women, especially about diversity overall on boards. And one of the key data points is, does it impact financial performance? And there's some data that's starting to emerge that actually higher levels of women in leadership are leading to up to 15% better financial performance against peers.
But why is that? Is it just that they bring in a different perspective, or is it that they have other qualities?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it we don't know, but what it points to is, one is around perspective. On boards that are of no diversity, we have groupthink. So when you have groupthink, are you really thinking about the issues? Are you really tackling things from different angles? Are you really thinking about solutions that can support the business that are different from previously? So it's about diversity helping with that groupthink. The other theory is that women tend to be more risk averse. So in decision making, will be much more thorough in that decision making and looking at risks. And partly that's because women often will be punished more if they fail. So there's a sense that if you're a female in a leadership role and something goes wrong, you're quicker to be removed than male counterparts. So women tend to be much more risk averse, according to some of the research. But a lot of it is around that culture and creating a culture of diversity, of perspective, of governance that we're starting to hear anecdotally from a lot of boards.
What about other groups? We're talking about diversity. Is it more important to have gender diversity than, for example, ethnic diversity?
I think diversity is critical. What is really important for me at the moment, though, is that 50% of the population are women. And if really we are going to thrive as a society, as an economy, and as an industry, we need to engage the biggest group who are missing. That is not to the exclusion, obviously, of other groups, especially around ethnic diversity, Indigenous groups, youth. There's so much work for the sector to do, but there's 50% of the population who are critical to, I think, our future in terms of an industry, to bring talent and perspective, but also to society. And obviously one of the key things about mining is, and that we really focus on right now, is what is our value to society? What is our contribution to society? And if we're not thinking about women in that equation, then there's no way we can actually sustain any kind of value.
Some say that in order for women to succeed, they need to act more like men. Do you feel that that is how women succeed? And doesn't that then defeat the purpose of having this other perspective on the board?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And we were joking earlier about really, there's been a generation of women who have really pushed the ceiling, so to speak. But traditionally it was very much about mimicking your male counterparts, and we all had our navy blue trouser suits, and we tried to have a deeper voice when we were speaking. I think what we're starting to see now is women really trying to be who they are, because actually if you're mimicking men, we fall into some of the same traps of groupthink. So I think we're starting to see that progression of who are you as an individual, whether you're a man or woman. And that's what we're starting to come through now, and I think that's really, really important, because that's where your expertise and your experience and your voice is going to come from.
Some suggest that the reason why there are still so few women on boards is because they work as this men's club, and that perpetuates men in top roles. Do you agree?
Yeah, and definitely we're finding that one of the most critical ways to advance towards board positions, senior positions, is through your network. And when networks are primarily male, they reinforce each other. So this is also one of the goals of the mentoring program, is to try and help women match up with both senior men and women to help them really advance their network and get that exposure. The other piece is that we don't have the pipeline, so we don't have women coming through and getting exposed to the expertise and the skill sets that we need on the board, and sitting in those very senior roles that will help prepare them to be in a succession plan for a board.
Some countries now are implementing quotas for boards. Do you see this as the right approach to get more women on boards?
I think there's multiple approaches that need to be taken. Some contexts, they feel that quotas is the way to really create change and make it quickly. Countries such as France and Germany. Countries such as the UK have gone for a more voluntary approach, and really much more about building the business case and having this voluntary drive. And we're seeing both are working. But at the same time, it needs more than quotas and targets. It really needs leadership at the same time. I think it needs leadership from within the board, from the chairs, from other board members. It needs leadership from those who can influence boards. Investors, lenders have a huge voice to play, not just the regulators. So I think there really needs to be, a very holistic approach. There's no one answer. Very
interesting conversation, and I want to end it by looking ahead. And you have mentioned already that some of the technological changes that are coming into the sector. How will that influence the work on gender equality?
I think this is one of the most important questions for the industry right now. The future of the industry and the future of the workforce is rapidly changing as we see the concept of the fourth industrial revolution take hold. We're seeing digital disruption, we're seeing automation, AI, the whole role of innovation in the sector. But we also know mining is a laggard in that transformation. But we also know, and we're having a lot of discussion right now about, here's this great opportunity. We can start to have remote sites where people can live in Perth, Australia, not at site, and have a 9-to-5 job. What does that do to help enable different people engage in the mining sector? The issue that we have is that the majority of those skills require STEM education, computer science, technology, and increasingly women are still not going into those professions. So we actually run a huge risk of making it worse. Because if we don't take action, and very proactive action, to think about how can this technology and how can this disruption actually help us, then we really run the risk of missing this opportunity.
What would you say, what does the mining industry look like in 2030, or the workforce in the mining industry in 30 years from now?
It's hugely diverse. For us to be successful as an industry, we really need to represent the communities and the society in which we work, in which we live, if we're really going to thrive. I think we've got great opportunities around technology, but there's large parts of the sector that won't transition that way. So I think we really need to start, lifting our head up and looking to other sectors and other industries to think about how can we really be better, more diverse, more inclusive, and therefore I think make better decisions and add better value to society.
Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
This is Highgrade.